Hey, how's it going? Jason here, and today we're going to be talking about this olive I have right here. Today I want to talk about troubleshooting your tree if you're not getting the growth that you're expecting. And that happens a lot, to a lot of beginners. It happens a lot to even advanced people. If you're not getting the growth that you're looking for, you've got to be able to identify what the possible problems could be so that you can fix them. And I think this is a good topic to talk about just in general, just because on a lot of videos, people are showing some really awesome trees that are doing fantastic. But the reality is that every collection, every bonsai person, every bonsai artist has trees that they're having difficulty with, or maybe just a few trees that are struggling. And I think it's really good to discuss talking about that, especially at this time in the season, where you can make quick corrections so that your tree can start to thrive. Every artist has trees that maybe aren't doing fantastic or aren't doing as well as they should. And we've got to be able to identify what those possible problems could be. So I brought this tree over. It's a very old olive, and I'll move it closer so you can see. So here's a close-up look of this really old olive. It's got this really cool hollow inside. It's really neat right there. It adds a huge feature to this tree that makes it very special. The only problem is that it is kind of rotting away in here slowly. So in order to kind of prolong the life of this, at some point if this rots away, the tree will die. But what we'll have to do is we'll have to put some wood hardener in here and try to seal it up, just so it protects it a little bit so that it won't continue to go as fast as it is right now. So what we'll try to do right now is identify what the other problems could be. So when dealing with a tree that could be struggling, I tend to look for a few things right off the bat. One of those things is I look for pests. Number two, I look to see if the soil is dry, and that also goes into the quality of the soil. So I look to see if maybe the soil is bad, it's compacted, the water's not going through. And number three, I kind of look to see if the tree is root bound, if the roots are just struggling to grow, and maybe that could be the cause of a root issue, which will in effect hamper the growth of the tree at the top. So I think this tree has a couple things going on. So you can see on the foliage right there, it's got some yellow. You can see the yellow leaves right there. That's okay. I mean, sometimes that happens just due to lack of sun, but it's like for being spring. And then if I go around my garden, I look at the rest of my olives that are pushing really strong. This one's not. So you can see some buds coming out, but they're not really good. So that's why I set this aside so we can kind of look at it. If we talk about the three things, pests you can search for. You can search your tree for. You can do a spider mite test. You can look for it. I don't think that's the issue over on this one. A lot of this one's growing in an area that has a lot of other trees next to it, and the rest of the trees are fine. So I don't have any indicators on the other trees as well. Of course, they can still attack the one single tree, but I don't think pests is an issue on this tree. Number two, the soil. And I think this is where it's going to come down to. It's the soil on this tree. And a really good indicator of this tree having an issue with soil is just when I kind of dig in here in the center here, and that's on the inside, so it must be on the outside. It's really muddy, so you can see right there. I don't know if that's focusing well, but it's very muddy. And that's not what we want. We want something with really fast drainage, or just good drainage in general. It doesn't have to be super fast on olive, but just something with really good drainage in general. And that's going to help the growth of the roots if we have some good soil, which will in turn give you some better buds. The other issue is that the tree, I'm not sure how long it's been in here. I think it's been in here for a while, and you can tell just by the pot bursting. You can see from the pot, you can see it's all broken right here on this side. The tree is clearly root bound. So let's take a look, and let's go a big mess in my studio, but let's take a look to see what's going on here. So during spring season, it's a good time to evaluate your trees. It's not always, obviously it's a good time to repot your trees into a final pot, but it's also a good time to reevaluate your trees. So I can see what was happening here is that it looks like it was in a grower's pot, and then the grower's pot started to break, so it was put into another grower's pot. So it's actually got two layers of grower's pots here, and it looks like the roots grew into the second one, so the roots aren't growing properly. They're kind of getting strangled at the base. So that's what's going on with this, and it's being reflected on the top here. So that's what sometimes you gotta do. If you see a tree that's struggling, you have to try to identify the issue. If you can identify the issue, once you identify the issue, we can fix it, put it in a better environment, which will in turn give you the growth you want. And then we'll probably get some really good fall season growth on this when it comes. So you can see right here, this was the first can, and then the second can is underneath it. And basically you guys know that on the cans you have holes on the edges here on the outside. So the roots were growing on the outside, and then they try to create a new root system on the outer pot. It's just not going to work That way the tree's just not going to like that. So basically all the roots are getting strangled here at the, they're getting strangled at the original drainage holes on the first pot. And this is interesting because I've never seen this before. It's root bound on the outer pot, and it's also root bound on the inner pot. So you've got a double root bound tree, and that's why we're not getting really desirable growth at the top at all. For how old this tree is, we should be getting some really lush growth. So let's fix this. So I'm gonna spend some time just breaking away this can, and then we're gonna try to get to the main root structure. All right, and here's a close look at this double root bound tree. You can see all along the sides, it's just, the roots are done. It's winding around in the little flaps. So we're going to have to go in here and we're going to have to loosen this whole root ball, or this whole root basket going on. It's way too old. These roots are not happy. They're all tangled up. So this is the issue with this tree. Luckily, it's not anything more serious than this because we can fix this. Today we're going to be doing more of a slip pot. You know, I'm not just going to be slipping it directly into a pot without doing anything, but we are going to loosen it up enough so that these roots can start to grow. We'll trim it as well, but we won't be as aggressive in the root pruning as we would if we were to put this in the pot. Okay, and here's where you can see this kind of double pot thing going on. It's kind of funny. I've never seen this before. Right there, you see this little pad of roots that tried to form, because here's the plastic in between. So that's interesting. So now you know, if you do that, if you put it in another pot and let it sit for 10 years or so, you're gonna end up with 2 little root pads. We don't want that. We need to cut that first part away. The tree's like, why? It's almost like an hourglass root structure. It's wide here, and then it gets really narrow right there, which is the hourglass, and then it gets wide again. So it's really strangling the tree. At this point, it's better to cut that root off, that bottom root off, and restart it in a new pot so that the roots can grow properly and not be this thing. This is so interesting. So there's the there's a little root pancake we got right there. So now we've got this root ball back down to a normal size, and I've trimmed some of the roots. So now if we put it in a new pot, which is what we're going to do right now, it'll start to grow a lot better roots, which will in turn grow better foliage, so we can further develop this tree. So for the pot, I've got this one right here. It's a pretty big can. I'm going to reduce the height of it because I think it's way too tall. I don't want the roots to grow too long, otherwise we're going to run into the issue of a huge, root structure on the bottom. We want to keep it flat still, so we want the roots to grow laterally as much as we can, but at least grow freely. All right, and then inside I've got some drainage holes I just need to cover. They don't need to be attached, they just need to be covered. All right, cool. So I can't show you, otherwise they'll all fall out, but they're all covering the holes right now. All right, so the soil mix I have that I'll be using today to replace it is going to be a mixture of peat moss, pumice, some macadamia, and some lava, red and black. I just used whatever I found. I had some red lava around, so I put it in here. And I wanted to use some peat so it would hold some water and get some good water retention in here, but at the same time, put a lot of aggregate this time, so that way it'll drain really nice, and also it won't clump together. See how that freely falls apart? So this combination is good. I put a lot of the pumice just because it's going to be in a pretty big grower spot, so the pumice is going to be good at keeping the soil light and keeping that can light so I can move it without breaking my back. So now I'm going to line the bottom here. I put the drainage spoon, so I realized I forgot to bring my scoop over, so I'll just be using my hands. And I'm going to line the bottom. I'll show it to you in a second. So I've got that lined up. So you can see in there, without it all falling over. You see inside, it's filled up most of the way. Okay, so if you bring the tree over, you can see that I probably have to fill it up to about here before I put this tree in, back into the pot. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna fill it up a little higher. And this time I'm gonna work a little smarter. You just dump it in. Tree in here. This is just a simple slip pot. Oh yeah, that fits in there perfect. And that's a good height too. Yep. And then you can still see the base, which is really nice. Still see the base. And then I'm gonna fill the rest of the sides in here with soil. I just use my hands for that. And then that is, and then this will be happier. I'm gonna take care not to throw dirt into that hole there. Otherwise it'll rot some more when I water it. Okay, so that's basically it. That was a quick slip pot on this really nice olive. I have 100% confidence that this tree is going to be much happier now. I feel like the roots are going to grow correctly instead of through this kind of hourglass root structure that it had before. So just to sum up, you know, what I'm hoping that you'll take away from this video is that if you see that your tree isn't growing the way you want it, try to identify the main issue that could be causing it. You know, the tree is supposed to always be vibrant, it's supposed to be thriving. See if it's a soil issue, see if it's a drainage issue, see if it's a root bound issue, see if it's a root issue, see if it's a pet issue, see if it's a pest issue, but yeah, theoretically it could be a pet issue as well. And also just see if, you know, lastly, you might be like, okay, it could be fertilizing, but really go through those other things first before you just skip to throwing fertilizer on the tree, because that might not help the situation, might make it worse. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Give me a like if you thought it was helpful, and subscribe if you'd like to see some more. I always appreciate it. And as always, thanks for watching.